morning, everyone. Welcome to the Plenary 3 session, Planetary Health Pedagogy, Learning for a Sustainable Future. Before we start the session, we would like to run you through some house rules. Please put your phones on silent mode. TERI is a health, safety and environment certified organization, so in case of any untoward fire hazard, you're required to exit from this hall through the fire exit gates. There are 4 exit gates on the right side of you in the hall. We request you all to also please use the hashtag Griha Summit 2025 and hashtag Griha for all while sharing updates on social media. Good morning, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I, Veena N, on behalf of Griha Council, extend to you a very warm welcome on the second and the final day of 17th Griha Summit. Yesterday, we were graced by the presence of Shri Srinivas Katikitala, Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, who inaugurated the Griha exhibition Nirman along with Her Excellency Ms. May Ellen Stenner, Ambassador, the Royal Norwegian Embassy, and Mr. Ashish Khanna, Director General, International Solar Alliance, who then were also present for our inaugural session. Day 1 also saw the presence of eminent dignitaries, speakers, and conversation-stirring deliberations on various topics like rethinking climate-resilient infrastructure, navigating market mechanisms to ensure energy security, cascading innovations, climate-smart water security, and extraction to execution, innovations in building materials. Today too, we have an interesting lineup of sessions on allied topics around the theme of the summit, Innovate to Act for a Climate-Resilient World. To promote awareness and engagement on sustainable habitats, Griha Council has initiated Griha Green Building Tours series across India. The tours have showcased exemplary projects like Net Zero Carbon Homes in Mohali, Vastukar Design Studio in Bhubaneswar, ABB India Limited, Nelmangla campus in Bengaluru, and also the Green Building Tour of prestigious Uttarakhand Niwas was conducted on 1st November as a prelude to our summit and received an overwhelming response from the participants. And here are a few glimpses of the same. Today at the summit, we have captivating exhibition Nirman at the Charminar area, which is an innovative showcase presenting sustainable alternatives within the construction industry. Everyone is encouraged to go visit the same. And now, without any further ado, let's begin with the session. Education is the game changer in building a climate-resilient future. In this session, we'll explore how educators and institutions can spark innovation and action against the climate crisis by weaving sustainability into everyday teaching, empowering students with the skills and mindset to design low-carbon solutions. We'll shine a light on climate literacy at every level, transformative teaching practices, interdisciplinary learning, and collaboration between academia and industry. On that note, I would now like to invite our esteemed chair for this session on the dais, Mr. R.R. Rashmi, IAS retired, distinguished fellow TERI. At TERI, he leads work on climate change policy, low emission growth and carbon markets. A senior retired IAS officer, he also served as Special Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and was India's key climate negotiator in the lead-up to the Paris Agreement. He continues to contribute to national and international climate policy through his roles in various expert committees. We welcome you, sir, onto the dais. A round of applause, please. Up next, I would like to welcome our first panelist, Dr. Vishal Garg, Director, Indorama Ventures Center for Clean Energy, Plaksha University. He is also a professor at the university. His research interests are in the areas of building energy simulation, smart energy homes, and cool roofs. He was awarded the inaugural Dr. Arthur Rosenfeld Urban Cooling Achievement Award and is a fellow of the International Building Performance Simulation Association, IBPSA. He holds a Bachelor of Civil Engineering from MBM Engineering College, Jodhpur, and a PhD from IIT Delhi. We welcome you, sir. Please come on to the dais. Next up, we have Dr. Seema Khanwalkar, Adjunct Faculty, IIT Gandhinagar, Vice President, International Association for Semiotic Studies. She is a renowned social scientist and a semiotician based in Ahmedabad, with over 3 decades of teaching experience at premier institutes such as JNU, NID, IIM Ahmedabad, and CEPT University. She has made significant contributions to the fields of applied semiotics design and cultural studies. Dr. Khanwalkar currently serves as a Vice President, Asia and Oceania of the International Association of Semiotic Studies and is the author of the acclaimed book, Applied Semiotic Tools for Indian Landscape. We welcome you, ma'am. Up next, we have Dr. Daniel Joseph Whittaker, a Senior Lecturer and Coordinator. He's a distinguished architect and educator currently serving at the Singapore University of Technology and Design. With over a decade of professional experience in building design and heritage conservation, he has also worked on notable international projects, including the Wrightwood 659 Museum in Chicago, designed by architect Tadao Wando. At SUTD, Dr. Whittaker teaches architectural history, sustainable design, and building technologies, inspiring the next generation of architects. We welcome you, sir. And last but not the least, Dr. Prateek Sharma, Vice Chancellor, Delhi Technical University. He is the Vice Chancellor and an eminent environmental engineer with over 3 decades of research and teaching experience at DTU. A PhD from IIT Delhi, his work focuses on environmental systems modeling, air quality, and pollution control. Professor Sharma is a fellow of the Wessex Institute of Great Britain and a member of the National Knowledge Network supporting India's National Clean Air Program. I extend a very warm welcome to you, sir. I request all the panelists to please come forward for a group photograph before we begin the session. Could you all just stand up and... With this, I now take the opportunity to request and hand over the session to Mr. R.R. Rashmi to take it ahead.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to all of you, and welcome to all the panelists also for joining me in this discussion. This is an extremely interesting area where we are going to spend some time. We often forget the role of innovators and the people who educate in the whole business of sustainability. We are here to basically discuss how we can transform the energy systems across economic sectors and particularly highlight the role of distinguished people who are representing the panel today in different fields of education and technology, how they can contribute to this goal of transformation. Now we all know that we have a net zero goal for economy by 2070. In fact, the peak will have to be reached much earlier than that. And the buildings, the transport, the infrastructure, all these economic sectors will have to play a much more intense role We will have to do something much more intensely in these sectors to be able to peak much before 2070. So that is around 2040, 2045, 2050. That is the time around which we are supposed to peak our emissions, our energy, if not energy consumption, at least energy production, the kind of energy that we use today. So this is a challenge, and in this challenge, we have to be helped by the education system, the system which produces the best minds. So this is an area where we are touching two aspects, two dimensions. One is the education itself, the whole system which educates people, creates awareness, and gives them the technical tools, and innovates. And the second dimension is the youth itself. After all, it's the young people who are being touched by education, who are going to be who are going to play a key role in transformation in future. So when we have to look at the role of education, technology and innovation, we have to look at how we can touch the lives of the youth. So apart from the technological transformation that we are all looking at. So I am helped in this effort trying to understand the related issues by four distinguished panelists, and I will not introduce them again because they have already been introduced by the organizers. Let me begin with Dr. Vishal Garg from the Klaksha University. Sir, given your expertise in the data and the energy systems, how do you think we can collaborate more strongly between the academia and the industry to accelerate the transition towards clean energy and build up a more stable system, long sustainable system, which can keep this change going and make it a part of overall education system?
Thank you, sir. I think there are two key things in your question. One is the data, and the second thing is industry academia collaboration. I think they also go together. The whole education system is now evolving, and gone are the days when it was just teaching and not being industry ready. And when they go out, then the industry trains them, and then they start working. Now the education and research are both fusing between industry and academia. Earlier, industry also didn't trust academia; they never gave problems to solve, and academia said that the industry is giving us very simple, trivial problems. They are not having enough research for us to work on. So there was a disconnect. Now, the industry has a lot of problems to solve. They have data, enormous amount of data, and the educational institutes, they can work on data and solve problems and involve students in solving this problem. So this kind of collaboration needs to be strengthened. It is easy to say but very difficult to implement, because in academia also we don't share data easily. So if I have some data, I will be hesitant sharing it with other universities, because I would like my PhD student to first use that data and graduate instead of sharing it. So we need some kind of mechanisms to facilitate safe sharing of data within a given scope and involve students in solving the real life problems. Now, data itself is not sufficient, because students can take the data, try to understand the problem, but if they have a solution, how do they test it out, whether it's working or not? So academia can build digital twins using this data, which can model the process. Then the students can try out different solutions and see how impactful they are. So we can create virtual spaces using the real data, where we can involve students and industry to try out solutions and then it can be deployed in the industry. So this is like one way I think industry, academia can collaborate, innovate, and use data.
I'll come back to you, Dr. Gulf, with the second round of questions. But thank you for your initial thoughts. I'll now turn to Dr. Khanwalkar. Dr. Khanwalkar, you work in the area of semiotics. You symbolize the representations. So, what is it? Do you think to what extent they are relatable to climate science? And because we are working in the area of climate science and then using it for transformation of the energy systems. So, what innovation in the teaching approaches can be undertaken with the kind of expertise that you command in this field?
Well, thank you so much, and I'm privileged to be part of this esteemed panel, and thank you, Terry, for inviting me, and Briha. So I have the most difficult job amongst the panelists because I'm not directly connected to climate change, but I form the basic, the foundation for pedagogy, because semiotics is all about understanding and interpretation, as you rightly said. So one starts with the words that are used. So how is it that ecology, is interpreted in and development, right? So from say the 1960s, when the first charter was sort of laid down, the ecology and development was separate. Okay. Since then, we have ecology and development that have come together in the field of sustainable development. And as a result of that, what we call in semiotics the narrative, has changed, and the policies have undergone a drastic change when we use words to mean different things. So the idea of meaning lies in a fundamental use of language, in the fundamental use of science, and it has long-term effects in policies, in frameworks, and that I think is the crux of decoding, what we call semiotic decoding and encoding into future frameworks as well. So for instance, if you want to include women, in the framework for development, but it's not as simple as just mixing ecology and development and saying, okay, women can be part of ecology, but they can't be part of development. And this has undergone several debates and rounds over the years, which is still not sort of clear. So a semiotic input can bring about a clarity to creating policy documents, to interpreting language in terms of how we are representing simple words in society. So ecology, development, sustainability. So these are all words which are used all around, but if you really stop to think, what do they mean to us? And I think that is something that we need to. So I start at a very basic level in terms of pedagogy to students, which is decode them in context, in cultures, in the context of gender, in the context of cities, in the context of a lot of things, climate. So unless we do that, I think we just go ahead with documents and frameworks without taking a pause to rethink what are we talking about. So that is where I think semiotics plays a big role.
Do you think there are any challenges or difficulties here in integrating this kind of consciousness into the current systems of education, where we want to touch ecology, culture?
Yes.
Do you think there are problems here?
Absolutely.
And what is it that we can need to overcome?
Absolutely. So there's a small PPT that I have made, if I can show it. The PPT. Just one slide. Yeah. So the problem is when you mix two terms, Like say, what does ecology deal with? What does development deal with? They're completely, so environmental, so till the 1960s, so till the 1960s, the discourses was all about separation of environmental and ecological discourse, and development was a separate discourse, right? So what happens is the narrative that you take for both are distinct. And after the 1960s, we had an integrated ecological sustainable development, right? And all the reports that I saw, whether it was the Stockholm report or so, because of this, the whole shift and the confusion into what to include in ecology, and are they distinct, ecology and sustainability, are they distinct, are they together? Who are the actors? Who is the agent of the change? Has become a matter of debate, and I think this is something that this is the concern that I would like to raise.
My apology, I forgot to ask you in the beginning if you have a presentation. You are most welcome to come and present. So I have, you all have this flexibility. If at all at any stage you want to make a presentation, you are free to do that. Dr. Whitaker, thank you for coming all the way from Singapore. Now you have worked in the area of architecture, design. You continue to teach on this area of technology in the Singapore University of Technology and Design. I have two thoughts which you may like to address. One is the issue of design. How can design be integrated into climate education to foster, let's say, innovative solutions for planetary health, including the buildings? And second is the issue of artificial intelligence. It's coming up as a major issue. The digital solutions, data analytics, digital modeling. To what extent do you think, and how best we can integrate this again into the climate science and climate education?
I thank you, and thank Griha.
If you want to speak from there, welcome.
I thank you and thank Griha for the invitation, and to be honored to be with all of you here today. And yes, to respond to the first part of your question, how can design be integrated into climate solutions? I think part of, at least my understanding of vast, deep Indian history, which I'm fascinated by, is thinking of the charba, the four-quartered garden that Babur brought to India. And the notion of man conquering nature, I thought was part of the theme of that, of taking a garden, quartering it into four pieces, and then thinking about the sources of life with water and how it feeds that. And one to take an analogy from that history and bring it into the classroom in terms of bringing climate solutions to architects, which is what I am involved with, architect education is, and bringing design solutions to them. Having a deeper understanding of history can help them better grasp the larger picture. Because oftentimes students focus on one assignment individually, and we want to bring to them the notion that an assignment has multiple tendrils into different areas. And if they understand basic concepts of history better, they can have a broader understanding of the project. We try to integrate industry into these projects in a program where we have industry partners pay or help fund research to solve a real world problem near the end of a student's education. They must collaborate with other fields as well. So it's not just architecture students solving an architecture industry problem, but it is architecture students working with other disciplines, robotics, drone engineering, systems engineering, user experience, to make a project come to a system solution. So architecture education cannot exist in a vacuum. It must encompass multiple people in different industries. The second question you had about AI specifically, we have been happy to watch our students grasp AI solutions in terms of improving Python coding, for example. But the students must have a foundation to understand how to Python code to begin with before they go to AI to ask to elaborate on that code so they can troubleshoot it when AI does not deliver a proper response. So knowing the basics, knowing how to code manually first before going to AI to ask questions to solve Python coding is essential. So, thank you.
When we talk of design and the use of course, the modern science of artificial intelligence, but we normally look at design only when we are looking at transformation of energy systems. We forget about adaptation. Now, why I am saying this is because the traditional heritage, the traditional knowledge in most of the societies tries to discover the value of design in helping them to adapt. And there are several good examples. You mentioned Charbagh, for example, in India. There are step wells, which are very specific, very local, innovative designs, helping conserve water and improving the access to water. So do you think we can, how education system can look at this element of traditional heritage, traditional knowledge, and integrate them in the education system?
The step wells are obviously of great fascination in Rajasthan and drier climates. The resources that heritage can bring to education beyond a tourist component of interest, I think runs much deeper. Beyond the history of a component site, the evolution of the site, I would encourage education to grasp interests of the local community and whether they have both buy-in and linkage to a historic site to make that come alive in more ways than just a single half-an-hour stop, which I see happen in many cases. So bringing depth of knowledge to why such step wells were created, how they were created, but then what kind of adversarial conditions necessitated that creation to begin with would help students understand the notion that through challenges that ancestors faced in the past, they were able to come up with these incredibly inventive solutions which incorporated artistic design and practical harvesting of water out of the earth. What methods can they bring analogous to contemporary situations where there's serious hardships, whether it's air quality, traffic congestion, that they can look at past solutions but bring connections to those.
Thank you, Dr. Veshkar. Let me turn to Professor Prateek Sharma. So you are heading the Delhi Technical University, and I would like to learn from you what is your experience in the university system, education system. How do you think, is sustainability really important? Is it currently being taught, or if not, what is the best way of creating the universities as a hub for innovation and sustainability solutions, and trying to make it a permanent part of the education system rather than ad hoc, approach?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, sir, this is a real challenge, especially in a technological university, because usually what happens is that, especially typically in a technical institution, departments and the faculty members think actually for every solution, technology is the solution which is available. So therefore, whatever knowledge they are imparting is basically primarily in their silos only. So for example, mechanical engineering in their silo, civil engineering in their silo. And when we talk of sustainability, usually what happens is, especially even after coming of the national education policy, where what has been said about sustainability, environmental pollution, climate change. Usually what happens, even if we take the simple course on environmental studies, which actually came as a directive from the Supreme Court, usually in isolation only the issues related to sustainability are taught. So, in fact, this was something that I observed 2 years back, and in fact, all through my teaching career, this has been what we have observed, especially in the context of technical institutions. So, there is a need that there is a interdisciplinary discourse takes place where the faculty members themselves are the biggest bottleneck, because they are basically whatever research they are doing or whatever teaching they are doing in their own silos. So they are not willing to cut across the disciplinary boundaries and enter into someone else's disciplinary zones. So sustainability by definition is an interdisciplinary domain subject. So just to give an example, say for example, one talks about tries to give a technological solution to wastewater, what we discharge in rivers, for example. So there is a need to emphasize within the institution that there are certain sanitary boundary limits beyond which the technology cannot provide the solution. So there are certain things where the behavioral change comes. So these are the factors which basically what we are trying to do is create hubs, interdisciplinary hubs, center for excellence where the knowledge is being created, where we are trying to bring people from different disciplines to identify a solution for a particular problem which is related to sustainability. And unless and until that is done, whatever we may do at the teaching courses, that is not going to help. Even say for example, when we rarely it happens that when we talk of civil engineering materials, amount of so usually the general pattern that has been observed with few exceptions is this, that age-old processes which are are held in terms of manufacturing of the building materials, or even in other electrical, mechanical engineering also. I mean, the aspects of sustainability, energy efficiency are not actually taught in the formal curriculum related to a particular course. So usually what happens is that if you try to teach in isolation something related to aspects of sustainability, obviously in isolation the students and even the faculty members are not able to appreciate that. And it has to be integrated while teaching, say for example, the cement manufacturing and brick manufacturing, how we building the aspects of reducing the carbon footprints associated with any process. And so therefore, there is lack of awareness even about the life cycle analysis of various materials that basically are used, or any activity that we undertake, even related to how the computation of basic calculation of carbon footprints. So the point is that I'm trying to convey is that all these things have to be integrated in each course that we teach, rather than in isolation. And therefore, this is what exactly we are trying to do at DTU also, that we have created a school of interdisciplinary learning in which we have created certain centers where we encourage people from faculty members from humanities, talking to hardcore civil engineering, mechanical engineering, faculty members, and bringing some aspects of behavioral change, psychological aspects, economical aspects, where the circular economy is talked about, rather than in isolation, as part of the whole one course which is being taught.
Do you think it requires a fresh look at the syllabus or the formulation of the teaching content which we give to students?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. That is because what happens is, usually, in fact, Professor Garg mentioned in the beginning about the bringing in of industry academia partnership. Again, usually what one observes is that the syllabus that is being taught, usually for the sake of revision it is done, but the aspects of sustainability miss out, because again I would say there is a lack of even I would say inertia within the faculty members to actually go beyond their discipline boundaries and bring the sustainability aspects in the courses that they are teaching. And once, so therefore, in fact, incidentally these days, in fact, there's a Science Direct, what they have done is any publication that comes out, whether it is from physics or chemistry or even from humanities, you can actually see the mapping of the SDGs on the publication that is there. So therefore, these publishing houses have started doing this. So the idea is basically, unless and until we bring in certain aspects of revision of the curriculum, obviously we won't be able to bring in, and then more than the students, because students still have that, flexibility to adopt. Because these days, thanks to the environmental awareness campaigns, even the NCRT has, something introduction to starting from 4th standard onwards. So there is a simple orientation amongst the students. But the faculty members are the more where, a lot of training and teaching is required to be done in terms of building capacity and conducting more faculty development programs where, integration of the various aspects of sustainability are ingrained in the formal course that they teach for a particular of their domain specific course.
So let me go back to Dr. Garg, picking up from this point of how we can integrate sustainability into the teaching content or the syllabus, both for the faculty and the students. Do you think it should be a bottom-up exercise or a top-down exercise? Should it be mandated? Because we don't know. I mean, each educational institution and university is independent too. After all, they are supposed to be thought leaders, and that is their job. So, do you think it will militate against the academic freedom to impose something and give them a mandate, or do you think there is enough now guidance and inspiration available to do it from within the system?
I think I'll take this question and discussion in a little different perspective. We have to reimagine our own education system. We are talking about interdisciplinary, we are talking about experiential learning, we are talking about several things. Is our current framework supportive of what we are talking? So let me take a step back. So when I was a student, it was teaching. Teacher will bring some concepts, you will learn. Access to the teacher's note was the biggest asset. Having books was a differentiator. Somebody having books, somebody not having books. That was a differentiator. So access to information was the key thing. We will solve questions even in engineering. We used to solve questions which were solved 50 years ago. And everybody will solve the same question, everybody will get the same answer. It's just a matter of who gets it, who doesn't get it. No innovation per se. We are not moving the science further. Then came internet. So access to information was levelized. Everybody has access to same information. Now we could do innovation. We could think of new problems, we could use tools, we could use internet, calculation, computing, and we could further some knowledge. With AI, now access to intelligence is also with everyone now. So what do we teach? Information everybody has, tools everybody has, intelligence everybody has. Rather, I would say the students are better than the teachers. I would go and learn from them because I cannot use all the tools. They are more apt in using these tools. So the classroom has to change now. The whole pedagogy has to change. So one thing is teachers are no more source of knowledge or source of intelligence. This has shifted. So in classroom, now what is lacking? I have the knowledge, I have the intelligence, but still I cannot do it. So control over my decision making and execution is something which is to be taught. I mean, I can get it, I'm a diabetic, I know I should not take sugar, but I take it. right? So the knowledge is there, everything is there, intelligence is there, but still I'm not doing it. So what is to be done and to execute is what students should learn. Now when it comes to sustainability, as you rightly said, sir, it is interdisciplinary. So can we now reverse the role and start giving not solved problems to the students, but unsolved problems to the students? These are the unsolved problems, you solve them. And touching upon what you said, sir, technology is not the solution. I used to think technology is the solution, and now I've changed. Technology is just one piece of solution. It's the human behavior which matters. And nobody teaches human behavior in the technology university, right? So let us first understand the problem. Writing the problem statement clearly itself is a big thing. Let the students write the problem statement. Let them go and find out what is working, what is not working. Let them develop some solution. And here when I say solution, not just the technology, everything put together. Let them go and implement it, learn, and find out how they can push the solution towards a betterment. And that will be the real learning. And then we will have no one answer to all the one problem. There will be multiple answers to all the problems. We will discuss, collaborate. So I think time has come to dissolve departments. No need for departments. Just learning. And anyway, we will soon see a big disruption in the job market also. So the way the teaching has been done will shift to learning and more personalized learning at their own pace and their own interest. So maybe it's time to see the whole setup.
Thank you, Dr. Garg. That is an interesting take on this. The freedom to students to innovate and think, and not just give them something ready-made. Let them allow them to think, interdisciplinary and behavioral change. That behavior is also important apart from giving them the technological tools. So Dr. Khanwalkar, considering this, that the panelists are saying that apart from the technological solutions and the fixed curriculum, we also need to let them think and innovate themselves. So what kind of pedagogical tools or approaches can we think in terms of semiotics to help them come to force or induce this behavioral change?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, because I'm so glad that Dr. Sharma and Dr. Garg brought this interdisciplinary, and also the fact that you said we have to dissolve departmental boundaries, and that is something which is the norm of the day, because like you rightly said, technology is not the end goal. It is just a tool, and we need to educate students that there is a very important component of anthropological behavior, which has to be taken into account when it comes to understanding how these applied systems work, right? So unless and until we understand how cultures, even a simple culture like traveling by metro, if we have behavioral data. You see, so there was a Paris metro study done in the 60s when they studied every component of getting into the metro and getting out of the metro. And they actually had psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists sitting at every station and keeping track of the data, sketching. And so they produced a metro network which sort of appealed, or rather gave a design which helped all commuters find a reason to be at the metro station. You see, so there were some commuters who would hurry up and get into the metro. There were some commuters who would like to just stroll and miss the trains. Now these are things which are simple behavioral data, which if we take into account with technological growth, you see, so we can give our future generations a reason to be somewhere, a reason to be, travel, a reason to. So they are, I think, very gung-ho about technology, but they are not really stepping back and seeing how we use the technology, how we. So in semiotic, so we do semiotic anthropological studies, like exactly what the Paris Metro did. And it's very important to understand why is it that people have, say, scuffles in a metro. One sees a lot of that in the Instagram nowadays, right? Now, why? Why does the metro invite a certain behavioral pattern, unlike, say, in a bus, or unlike in a shared cab? See, so I think the problems will only get, so like you said, data. So behavioral data is the way to go. And when I teach a course at IIT Gandhinagar on innovation in context, I tell them that the social scientists are going to be highly in demand in the next, as technology grows. This data is going to be, because we cannot feed into technology unless we understand the cognitive working of the minds and the body, right? So I think that is where anthropology, semiotics, sociology are coming back in a big way, and that is a song that I'd like to sing for the next 50 years, and I hope that students feel much more empowered in that sense. So if we ignore that, then we're just going technology.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. That's quite helpful. Dr. Vichika, you have studied and taught at various institutions across the world. So I was interested in learning from you as to how the global learning and cross-cultural exchanges, how they can strengthen climate literacy, or how they can be used to strengthen climate literacy.
Well, thank you. I'm entirely in agreement with the idea of breaking down silos. One point to address the question in a moment was the hardest part, I believe, in being in education is to convey the notion of how to discern quality and what is garbage versus what is of merit when they do internet searches. So the notion of, in the past, who possessed the book or who did not possess the book is of relevance to today. The question of how can one discern what they find on the internet as being of high quality, being of marginal quality, or of being nonsense, and how to convey that skill set to a group of students for them to build their own climate criteria to evaluate the output is a huge challenge, but one that is enriching if that can be conveyed to the students. For global learning, having been in far southeast equatorial Asia for the past six years plus, the notion of students in one location thinking about building in climate and sustainability at equatorial region is second nature to them. They've been there for 18 to 21 years. The importance of getting them into internships that bring them to further away, to Taiwan, to Vietnam, to Thailand, to other architecture and design firms. They learn in a non-equatorial environment, such as Hanoi and northern Vietnam, where they have to think about building envelopes which deal with different climate zones, different than 1 degree north of the equator, enriches their understanding of why are buildings more tightly sealed in certain environments than other environments. Of course, you have 5 or 6 climate zones here in India, so students can experience in their own country a whole range of architectural solutions specific for climate zones. Yesterday, we heard from a panelist with glazing explaining the notion that different glazing systems, of course, are important to consider in climate zones. So getting students outside of their familiar zone by placing them in a 3-month, 4-month, 5-month internship program to work in the architecture, design, or related design engineering discipline enriches their educational experience immensely. So that's one great solution, I believe.
Excellent. That's really important to get people out of their zones and understand the intricacies and the complexities of the requirements of different regions, climate zones. Professor Sharma, coming back to you, and you certainly will not be the last one to be questioned on this. You know, since you have talked of interdisciplinary approaches, but I also wanted to understand the role of universities in developing entrepreneurship. You know, after all, apart from the behavioral change, which are valuable for the society and the long-term sustainability, we have to produce people who can, actually contribute in making this change happen. So, are the universities doing enough, and what is it that is needed?
Yes, sir. In fact, this is one of the most important thing to encourage startups and develop the entrepreneurship skills. For the simple reason because the creativity basically comes through that mechanism only. And in fact, most of the premier technical institutions, they have their own innovation and incubation foundation, kind of a vertical in which a lot of ideas are incubated, and we look for angel funding for making them, scaling them up. Only one challenge that usually we face, especially for bringing the faculty into the startups and innovation, is at times what happens is that in terms of their academic progression, usually the indicators are in terms of the number of publications that you publish. The product development part, unfortunately, at times is missing. So somehow that we, in fact, at DQ, we are trying to encourage that part. In fact, even for the masters or undergraduate level, anything which results in a product is basically incentivized in terms of promotion, in terms of their accreditation system, or even the marks that we actually provide to the students. So I mean, when we coming back to the question of sustainability, the moment we actually get into product development and startups, automatically, anybody working on a particular product development has to cut across the disciplinary boundaries, because there are technical aspects related with it, there are marketing related issues with it, there are economic issues related to it, there are financial issues related to it, how the market survey would be done. So automatically, if more and more such activities take place, not even it will basically encourage growing up of these incubating ideas and inculcating the spirit of entrepreneurship, but at the same time it will also bring in the aspects related to sustainability, related to frugal innovations. So automatically by default, which otherwise in textbooks it is difficult to find out, but in terms of, let us say, the externalities associated with particular product that is being developed, the interconnectedness that it brings in, the various aspects, the holistic view that one takes while developing the product. So the entire team automatically by default comes in. So this is one way, in fact, the question itself has an answer, in the sense, what is the way forward for the institutions, is to encourage more and more such startup activities, incubate ideas, because through those ideas only automatically by default, the different teams, technical teams, scientific teams, teams from humanities, economics will come into the picture, and automatically the spirit of learning will become more enhanced, and interconnectedness would be the key that will be basically help the sustainability.
Very good. Thank you for this vision, Dr. Sharma. With this, we have come to the end of our initial. I still have one last question for each one of the panelists, so please bear with me. But I will now open it to the House, and you have about 15 to 20 minutes So anybody who wants to ask a question, kindly introduce yourself and also mention the panelist. And keep the questions very brief. Yes, sir, please. Give a microphone to him. Somebody can pass the microphone around.
Good morning, sir. My question is to all the panelists, whoever wants.
Kindly introduce yourself.
So my name is Chaitanya. I am founder of SwimTech. It's a clean tech startup. So very good discussion today. My question, I have two questions. First is, we are preparing students very well with interdisciplinary knowledge, but when they are going to the job market, they are not going to join civil engineering firm or mechanical engineering firm or any climate firm. They are all going to join a finance company or IT company. So the talent that we are developing, that is somehow getting lost. So maybe after 5 years, 10 years, when the student, they think that they have to do something entrepreneurial, they might come back to this field. But that is the one problem. I know that there might not be a ready-made solution because this is a market problem. So what should we do about that?
Which panelist you are addressing this question?
Sir, anyone can answer because
Okay.
Probably Professor Sharma can
Okay.
answer. Because this is because all the problems that we see, whether it is a traffic problem or whether it is air pollution or whether it is flooding, so so everything is related to these issues for which we do not have talent. The talent is sitting in IT firms or finance firms. My second question is that we see in newspapers, on social media, that this flyover has caved in, highway has caved in. So in the classrooms, are teachers taking these pictures, these videos, and explaining to the students that look, this is why this road failed. This was a design problem or execution problem, consolidation was not done or drainage was not proper. So I think when Professor was talking about interdisciplinary learning, experiential learning, so when actual problems are explained this is why it is happening, I think that will be a great
All right, okay. So the first question is about when the students go to the job market, we lose the value of the training or inputs that we implemented. Second question is about the real world learning. So the first question to Dr. Garg, second one to Professor Sharma.
Yes, very interesting question, and I have observed this. We started building science program 25 years ago, right? How to design efficient buildings, energy, water, whatever. And the students will do that program and join the industry. Okay? Because that's the industry which pays more. As simple as that. And everybody wants to get better life. So I have been thinking about this for the last 25 years. And here is my take as on today. The biggest problem that we are facing is climate change, sustainability. The whole world is facing this problem. Billions of dollars are being spent to solve this problem. Countries are working on the solution. But jobs are not there, which are as high paying as computer science. So where is the problem? Why the biggest challenge of the world, the humankind that we are facing, we have no jobs to attract good students. I think we are in the 90s of what was computer science in the 90s, the Silicon Valley of 90s. This is not the time for jobs. This is the time for setting up the next Google, next Microsoft, next big thing in sustainability. And I think India can take the lead. That's a different story, we'll maybe not discuss it now. But this is the time of startups, this is the time to set up, this is the Silicon Valley, we are in the Silicon Valley of climate change. So first, let us motivate the students to do startups. Second, don't worry, let them go to the job that they want to do. Seed the idea of sustainability, seed the idea of problem solving. the real world problem solving, it will germinate. It will germinate 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, you don't know. Many of my students are now back to the building science. Why? They find better opportunities now in buildings. They want to do something, they have achieved sufficient in their life, they have financial stability, they now want to serve the buildings. Or sometimes they are losing jobs. Anything can happen. If you put the seed, when the environment is there, the seed will germinate. So these are the two things that I am doing. I am sure there must be more ways of looking at this problem and how to solve it.
As far as the second part is concerned, yes, that is the most, the best way to teach, to actually have case studies. And obviously the inspired teachers, this is the difference between an ordinary teacher and an inspired teacher. And somebody who is exceptional will always try to find out the latest which is happening, even the failures which have taken place. You know, obviously the concerned faculty certainly, this is what distinguishes between an exceptional teacher and an ordinary teacher. Collects the information and through that basically tries to teach the fundamentals which otherwise doesn't come through the textbook learning. So that is the way forward in fact. And in fact, if you see, this is more of a case, you know, the best of the institutions. In management, you have basically the case study based approach. But in the technology also, in technical departments, you know, we do find teachers who are really exceptional, who actually make an impact on the thinking of the students, are the ones who actually bring in a lot of case studies and real world examples, and then interlink the theory and the numericals associated with it. So, but the number of such people is less, unfortunately.
I think it's an excellent question because in classrooms, especially since Dr. Whitaker is also here, I have noticed, especially in architecture and design, we do not have real life case studies. You know, we don't show the bridges which have fallen. We show, we show what is the ideal bridge to be constructed by an ideal architect or by an ideal designer. And I think that is IIM on the other hand, like you rightly said, in IIM Ahmedabad, case studies becomes a method which is, you know, used to show also examples where they didn't work, the failures as much as the success stories. So I think these two should be included, and in architectural education, I think we have to move beyond just modernist architecture. I'm sorry, Dr. Whitaker, but we have to also talk about what is going on in the cities. How are we constructing things, you know, without thinking at all? And when they fall, we don't show that in the classroom. So I think that is.
Thank you. If I may add my bit to this, before I invite the second question. You know, this Dr. Garg has talked about promoting more startups. Don't look for jobs. Become an entrepreneur, set up a startup. But in the real world, the problem is, as he says, the corporate environment is structured in this manner that the sustainability is not the core focus item. But that is what we are discussing actually today. How to make it part of the university and education system. So it becomes a part of the behavior, not just educational tool. It becomes a part of your overall personality and behavior. And so each corporate entity appoints a chief sustainability officer. The rest of the people have no business with sustainability. So that is the trouble here. The sustainability has to be an integrated solution. Every single officer, every single manager in the corporate world has to think about sustainability. How best. So nothing is shorn of this, and nothing should be excluded from this. So this is a challenge, and that is why changes in the educational system are critical here. Dr. Whitaker, would you like to say something on this before I invite?
The notion of startups is particularly germane. The ability, if one or an education institution can send their students overseas or to a very shockingly different environment to work in a startup environment, in a startup company specifically, at least the data that we have seen in our institution and others nearby, is 25% of them, when they come back to their host country, create a new startup. Because they saw with their own eyes, how does a startup function? How many different hats does one have to wear? How many different people must they collaborate and coordinate with? But they must experience that, have the sleepless nights, be with a group of people around their own age range, doing a startup in a particular discipline that they're excited about, but have 4, 5, 6 month experience, and then return to their native country. And 25% of them actually create their own service because they have that experience. So that is a great factor.
Yes. The lady there.
My name is Priyanka Kochar, and I have deep interest in how sustainability is taught within the curriculum. Given that India is rolling out, and it has rolled out, the national education policy, and the panel also talked about training of teachers, I wanted to ask Daniel about his experience on in-service training for teachers across various subjects and how sustainability is embedded there. Thank you.
The architecture has a particular struggle in the last several decades because it traditionally was a gentleman's club. It was a service provided to the elite to build institutions of power. And now it's shifted to creating institutions for wealth building and commerce in a different sort of power than for royalty or other forms. So the shift of gentleman architects to something that's more egalitarian has been a challenge. And it's still struggling within the institution. One teaches alongside academics who perhaps have never built a building that study particular topics, and one also, perhaps like myself, worked in industry for 17 years, and the last 6 years went into academia. I am biased. I believe that is perhaps a better way to make sure teachers have that experience in real world building systems. That is a great benefit to imbibing that knowledge to students in the classroom. Sustainability, however, when I was a student, if you talked about green building, I think for most of us, people assumed you painted a building green. It was not a term used in 1994 architecture education. It only came much later. So this is something that the senior generation of architect educators were not trained in those ways. So they had to learn through promoting those values to a client. So the client will find both economic and social benefits for integrating those technologies and advertising those benefits to the building users. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a important question because we are talking about new generation pedagogy, which is towards learning, experience, individualization and all that, but the teachers are not trained on that. So we have been trained on the earlier pedagogy. So I think there is a huge need for training the trainers now. The teachers need to learn the new tools, the new ways of learning. I'm shifting from teaching all the way to learning now. And it's not just on climate, it has to be on everything. So like my next semester I'm going to experiment running a course 100% on AI. There is no lecture. These are the topics, these are the outcomes that the students should know. And using the Bloom's taxonomy, this is where they should be on each topic. They have to figure out the sources, they have to learn, they have to work. I will just see whether they can demonstrate that they have learned to the level where we wanted them to be. And to help them navigate this huge knowledge, how to select, how to understand what is correct, what is not correct, and self-paced. So teacher's role is going to be totally changed, and that needs a complete relearning across all the teachers, whether it is schools, whether it is colleges, universities. We need a totally new approach. How to do it, I have no idea, but I think there is going to be a big disruption.
Yes, one more thing, in fact, the basic tools related to sustainability, like the systems thinking, the systems approach, the interconnectedness of various things, how. So that is the most important thing, unfortunately, which the youngsters are still aware, but teachers are the ones who need to know more. And if you compare the best of the institutions globally and nationally also, the best institutions and the best faculty members are the ones where, even if you are on the verge of retirement, you are learning through the capacity building programs. AIMS, for example, they have a medical technology sector where, even on the verge of on the verge of retirement, even there, as small as, how to, make a presentation, these kind of capacity building exercises is slightly out of context, but in the context of sustainability, the more we do, the better it is, because awareness related to interconnectedness is missing, especially amongst the scientists and engineers. So that is what needs to be brought.
Any other question? Two more questions. One here. Yes.
Good afternoon, panel. I am Soumya Garg and I am
Sorry,
an architecture student. So my question is, if you look at the leading countries right now, like Japan and Korea, all of them are excelling because of their shared sense of responsibility towards their nation. But in a country like India, I think the sense of responsibility towards giving back to the Mother Earth is really lacking. And I, as a student myself, really find it missing amongst my peers, and I do not understand how that is going to change within a coming decade. And if that does not, that is really a problem for incorporating all the sustainable aspects that we are trying to. So how do you think that can be changed, or at student levels or teachers levels that we've already discussed, but like at student levels, how do you think that is going to change?
Thank you. I think Dr. Garg had touched upon this in his presentation, but if you want to elaborate on this once again, basically the behavioral change, it can't be done only through very strict formal education, and we have to break down all the create the person, infuse this in the consciousness.
I'll give a very simple example of behavioral part. We all know wearing helmet and seat belt is for our own safety, but we still need a law, right? After the law, and after people spending on the helmet, they put it on the rear view. Okay. Then some people put it on the head, but don't strap it. Now, if somebody can explain me that, then I can explain your question. So human behavior is so difficult. Today only there was some news item going around that somebody has put a pan on his head as a pillion. I don't know if you have seen that. He's put a pan instead of a helmet. And somebody took a video and posted it. So I think I don't agree to this, that as Indians we are not worried about the country, we are not contributing to the country. We are in our own ways. We all sitting here talking about sustainability not for ourselves but for the whole society. But the thing is, we have to understand the human behavior more and develop technologies which work with the behavior or change the behavior to adopt the technology. They have to go together for the success.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Yusuf. I run a green building consulting firm in Coimbatore. My question is to all the panelists. Dr. Garg mentioned that we are going to soon reach an era where information, knowledge, and even intelligence is going to be fully democratized. So I'm just wondering, what is going to be the role of the teacher, faculty, or educational university in that scenario? Where there is actually nothing to teach. So what would teachers be counselors, where you are only telling students what to think, as opposed to I'm confused on what will actually universities do then? So you're going to be, I think that's going to happen. That's already happening in the health sector, where doctors, there's no doctor on this planet right now who can diagnose a patient better than an AI. It's already there. So most doctors have largely become counselors now, where they are only helping you interpret the information that the AI has given.
Okay.
So I think are we going to reach a world where we are all only counselors? None of us are really experts.
Okay. So what will be the role of teachers in the modern world?
The difficult one, but still I try to. See, whenever any disruptive technology comes, I mean, these are the questions that come to mind. And nothing is going to replace, human capital or human brain, so to say, because as mentioned, ma'am also mentioned, AI is coming, AI is all data driven. That is why there is more, a lot needs to be done in psychological studies, sociological studies. Humanities are going to be the, in the next 50 days, this is something going to have something very important. And as far as the teachers are concerned, or universities are concerned, with so much availability of knowledge, I mean, you need to have the capability to understand what kind of knowledge to take and what not take, and the correctness of the knowledge. That also is so. Mostly, I mean, these days the term which is being used is a facilitator. The teacher has to be the facilitator of knowledge, and obviously, what earlier Professor Garg mentioned. When we were studying, obviously textbooks used to be the key and the class notes. But now these things are, in addition to these things, the YouTubes, the best of the three-dimensional modules are available, which are very easy to understand. But despite of that, underlying phenomenon processes which are there, and the correctness or verification, validation of knowledge has to come from somebody who has, submerged into, acquiring that knowledge. So that the role of the teacher can never be, minimized. It is only going to be the facilitator.
Yeah, I completely agree, and thank you for that question, because I completely agree with what Dr. Sharma is saying, is that the knowledge comes from the reading of theories, and theoretical knowledge is something that can never be replaced. So whether there is AI, whether there is any kind of digital technology, unless you understand the basis, the philosophy of technology, right? You have to have some kind of a philosophical base to every subject, whether it's mathematics, whether it's physics, whether it's anything. Now, unless that is, and that only a human, can impart. Right? You can do ChatGPT, you can do AI, you can get the paraphrase of what the theory is, but what the traditional way of teaching of theory and philosophy is something that can never be replaced. Same with applied. So there are two aspects to pedagogy. One is the philosophical aspect, where your fundamental disciplinary knowledge that is imparted by the human teacher. Second is the applied aspects as well. So how do you transfer theory into an applied methodology, which can then be transferred onto a technology? So I don't think human minds will be replaced for a long, long time to come. We are talking about facilitators or mentors, right? But teachers will always be what we call it, the foundation of any kind of learning. So I hope that is answered.
Anybody else would like to? Okay. Yeah, absolutely, I agree with them. The teacher's role is not just being a provider of information. It's that of correctness and validation of knowledge, and also giving a moral and ethical compass. You can't get this from the artificial intelligence. They will give you the best of knowledge. But ultimately, the ethics, the ethical approach, sustainability is about an ethical approach to environment. That doesn't come from technology. It doesn't come from artificial intelligence. So we have to really work towards that. So thank you very much. I think we have come to the end of the question and answer session is concerned. I still have one last round of questions left for the panelists. Let me begin with Dr. Khanwalkar. My question, and it will be the same question for each one of them. After we have discussed various dimensions, various issues and approaches. My one simple question is, if you are asked to, let's say, introduce one transformative or make one transformative intervention in the climate education system or sustainability education system, what would you recommend?
Thank you so much for that question, but I think it would just be the idea of critique. Why?
critique.
Why? Yes, why? Question why? There's a simple story of a little girl who, saw her mother cutting the fish, and the mother was taking out the head and the tail, and she was only cooking the central part of the fish. And she asked the mother why, and the mother said, because my mother would do it. So she went to her grandmother, and the grandmother said, because my mother would do it, right? But the child kept asking why. She went to her great-grandmother, and the great-grandmother laughed and said, because I didn't have a big pan. So I just cooked the fish in a small pan, and I felt that the two parts of the fish will fit. So unless we question and critique and understand why we are doing what we are doing, I think that is the most important aspect of this thing on justice. So what are we sustaining? Why are we sustaining it? And who are we sustaining? For whom? So these are kind of things that we need to focus on before we even take 10 steps ahead in sustaining.
To answer your question and the lady's question earlier about perhaps the regions and love of their country, I think of one student who I've seen go through an engineering architecture program who's from the Philippines, and he was aware of all these flood prevention measures that were supposed to be constructed in Manila and other places, but the companies to do them were not doing their job. And he wanted and worked on engineering a system with open source data to track rebar, concrete, construction equipment to see was it really being implemented to build these protective measures to protect the historic core of Manila. So his pledge was to the citizens of the city to say were the construction companies fulfilling their funded goals to do the construction they said they were. So his interpretation of how to harness technology to track and hold accountability for the love of the people of the city.
So that has to be the interconnectedness of processes. This is the most important key that I would like to reveal in, and the sensitivity towards one's actions and the implication of those actions.
I will plant the seed, and the way I will plant is by giving all the students an opportunity to do some work in this area, real work, whether it is for a village or whether it's for a neighbor, anybody, and solve some problem using whatever tools they have learned. So that will give them confidence that they have understood the problem, they have made an attempt, and the seed will be implanted, because when you do something, you remember it, and then hope the seed is germinating.
Thank you. Thank you all for your excellent insights and inputs. So we have come to the end of this session now. I don't intend to summarize at all because they have given covered various dimensions. But one theme which has been recurred again and again in their thoughts is that ultimately it is the education has to be, we have to break down the silos. The interdisciplinary approach has to be the focus, and Dr. Kanwalkar has said that we must understand why we are doing it. We have to critique everything that from a point of view of sustainability. So that has to be a part of the exercise of education itself. And Dr. Whitaker emphasized accountability. That again is important in the environmental sustainability transformation. Accountability. Ultimately, you have to hold somebody responsible for the failure. So understanding, and then accountability, and then interconnectedness. Dr. Sharma emphasized. He also talked about interdisciplinary approach. And last but not the least, the work begins from, at the grassroots level. You have to really understand the real world. So the students and the teachers have to be exposed to the physical world of sustainability. So each one of them is extremely important. I would like to thank once again the panelists for their knowledge, for their contribution to the subject, and thank you all for being patient with us. join me in
such an engaging and interesting discussion. And maybe to add to that, the behavioral change theoretical learning can never replace good teachers. Thank you, sir, for moderating the session so beautifully, and thank you, panelists, for your delightful insights. I would now request the chair to kindly present a token of appreciation to our distinguished speakers. Deputy CEO of Griha Council, to felicitate our esteemed moderator, Mr. Anand Ashmi. So the technical session has ended, but we still have some more left. Now we will be having a short presentation by Mr. Swaminathan Velraj, consultant from TERI. He is pursuing Masters in Architecture from IIT Kharagpur, and he will be presenting a short presentation on rethinking urban morphology. I welcome you on the dais now.
So, good afternoon everybody. Thank you for this insightful session. I would like to begin by thanking Griha and TERI for this opportunity, and especially Ms. Shabnam Basi, Director TERI and Deputy CEO of Secretary Griha Council, and Dr. Shankapratim Bhattacharya for their continued support and guidance. Let me begin with a simple question. What if our neighborhoods could breathe? Not metaphorically, but respond to the sun, the immediate context, and the comfort of the people who live in them. It's the vision behind my thesis, Code of the Living City, a generative approach to neighborhood design using performance-based multi-objective optimization. And I'm here to present a small part of it. Neighborhoods today are growing faster than ever, denser, hotter, and more unpredictable. Yet the rules that shape them are frozen in time. They tell us how tall a building can be, how far it must stand from the street, how much floor area we can build, but they don't ask if the space is comfortable, is it resilient. These codes regulate them, not performance. And in a world where climate is no longer stable, this rigidity could be dangerous. This realization sparked a question. What if we could rewrite the DNA of an entire neighborhood? Instead of prescribing fixed metrics, what if we created adaptive codes? Rules that adapt, rules that respond to sunlight, wind, and human comfort. This thesis is an attempt to move from static norms to dynamic performance-based codes, where the neighborhoods evolve with its climate and people. To do this, I turned to computation. Using tools like Rhino and Grasshopper, environmental simulators like Ladybug, Honeybee, and optimization engines like Wallacey, we built a system that just does not generate, it learns. At the heart of it is an algorithm called NSGA2, a multi-objective optimization algorithm. It generates thousands of neighborhoods forms and selects the one that best balances sun, wind, sky, sea, and thermal comfort. It's like natural selection but for an urban form. To test this, we chose a peri-urban site in Chennai, a place that knows heat, humidity, and rapid urbanization. This site includes MRC Nagar, a high-end development, and Nochikuppam, a slum, with a mix of residential and mixed-use plots. For building street and open space was modeled to understand how microclimate serves here. We simulated solar axis, wind patterns, radiation, sky view factor, sea view factor, area, volume, and thermal comfort, and various other objectives here. The site became a living laboratory. By integrating trees, high albedo surfaces, and optimized massing, we achieved temperature reductions of up to 5 degrees centigrade in the case of high-end development and about 8 degrees centigrade